All right, Shalom. First and foremost, before I begin this lesson, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rechah HaKodash. The honors go out to the apostles, the elders of Great Millstone, rule and teach well. Shalom, wa barakiam to you brothers and sisters out there. All right, this is Brother Malachi from the Great Millstone Nashville camp. And Lord willing that this lesson is edifying to the hopeful elect. All right, just a quick lesson I want to put up there, about Israelite foreigners, which, really we're all, Israelite foreigners. None of us were born in the land. Really none of us are even of the circumcision. We're all unnatural Gentiles because we didn't know who we were. We had to come into the knowledge of that. But when we're talking about Israelite foreigners, we're referring to Israelites that look like the other nations. Now, this is a very real thing because as we've gone into time and time again, the Bible clearly states that your father determines your race. We also know that your father isn't thousands upon thousands of years old, right? So it goes through your patrilineal, which is basically your lineage, like, for example, your dad, then your grandpa, your great-grandfather, your great-great, and so on and so forth, all the way up to one of the 18 nations, right? Which if you're an Israelite, of course, your patrilineal would go back to one of the 12 tribes, which goes back to Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel, which makes you an Israelite, right? The ITE, Slakia, that means you're a descendant of. You see? Oh, let me make sure. Okay, I'll make sure it's on Do Not Disturb. So I asked chat, I said, since your race is determined by your father according to the Bible, wouldn't it be common sense? Because that's really what it is. It would be common sense, but it shows that, our people are so, they're in such a degenerate state of mind that our people, and also just filled with so much carnality, and Esau has truly divided and conquered the nation of Israel. Our people, can't accept the fact that Israelites will look like other nations. You got Jake out there that won't even accept the other tribes. They won't even accept, the Northern Kingdom, the Latino, Native Americans. You got people out there that won't even accept light skins, right? If you're not so-called 100% black, which that's not even really a thing, right? Because for you black-only Israelites, unless you have the lineage records for your father and your mother, because according to them, both your parents have to be black. Unless you have those records, then you don't know if you're an Israelite. None of us know that we're Israelites 100% based upon carnality. No, this is a spiritual thing, right? Romans 8 and 16, we apply that to Israelite foreigners, but that applies to even so-called black Jake. Because how do you know, just because you got a fro and a broad nose and dark skin, how do you know you're not an Edomite? You could have been a product of grape during slavery. You don't know, right? So it's all a faith-based thing at the end of the day, right? But I said, wouldn't it be common sense that Israelites, along with which I spelled that wrong, other nations will all vary in appearance and even look like each other, right? Because the scriptures go into the wheat and the tares. So you have Edomites that look like so-called black people. That's the tares, okay? It says, yes, that's a very logical observation, and it actually aligns with how the Bible and history intersect regarding lineage and appearance. Let me break it down carefully. Biblical lineage versus race. In the Bible, heritage and tribal identity are passed through the father in many cases, especially in genealogies. For example, in Numbers 1, the tribes of Israel are counted according to their paternal line. This determines tribal affiliation, not necessarily physical appearance. It says appearance can vary widely. Just because someone is descended from a particular father or tribe doesn't mean they will all look the same. Genetics mixes traits in countless ways, which that's very true, right? Because even if a so-called black man and a so-called white woman have 10 kids, a lot of them are going to look different. Some might be light, some might be darker, some might have, different color hair, different color eyes. Genetics are kind of like rolling dice, to a degree. It says even within one family, siblings can look very different, right? Yeah. Multiply that over generations, and descendants of Israelite men could look extremely varied. That's where we get but y'all go ahead and get that scripture. Jeremiah 12:9, it says, mine heritage is unto me as a speckled bird. The birds round about are against her. Come ye, assemble all the beasts of the field, come to devour. Okay, so a speckled bird, different colors, right? Variation. All right, which the Lord, loves variety. All right, hence why, the nation of Israel was the chosen, but he created 12 tribes, which every tribe is, basically counted as its own nation. Which we're all one nation, not literally 12 nations, but you know what I mean? Like, the Lord looks at it like, they're all the same people, but they're different. All right, the Lord loves variety. It says 3, it says intermingling with other nations. The Bible records Israelites marrying or interacting with other people multiple times. All right, it says this would naturally introduce more variation in physical traits over time. So some Israelites could easily resemble non-Israelites physically, even though their heritage is Israelite. It says historical and modern implication. This explains why today people identifying as Israelites, Jews, or Levites can have a broad range of appearances, skin color, hair texture, facial features, and so on. Biblical identity is tied to ancestry and covenant, not just outward looks. Now we know in the kingdom of heaven, all Israel is going to get their appearance back. Okay, but as of right now, we're scattered. Israel will come looking like every nation, and they're going to come from the east to the west, like it says in Baruch 4 and 37, I believe it is, rejoicing in the word of the Holy One. Because that's what proves for sure that you're an Israelite. If you believe on this ministry, you believe on this truth. That's what solidifies you as being a Jake. Not your appearance. Let me get one to prove that. Right? Because we know, especially dealing with Esau, like it says in Malachi 1 and 4, right? Esau is the wicked. We know that. So watch this. The wicked can't understand this truth. Daniel chapter 12, verse 10. It says, many shall be purified and made white and tried, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. So none of the wicked shall understand. So no Edomite is going to come into this truth. All right, like it says in the Wisdom of Solomon, wisdom is not going to enter into a malicious soul. Okay? Only Israelites can be called into this thing. We are called into this thing. Now, we don't know if we're chosen. We only know if we're chosen if we endure unto the end. Matthew 24 and 13. He that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. Okay, but nonetheless, we know we're Israelites because we believe on the words of Yahweh B'Shem El Shai. Let me get this. Hosea chapter 7, verse 8. It says, Ephraim, he hath mixed himself among the people. Ephraim is a cake not turned. See? So, bro, point being, Israelites will look like any and everybody. It is 2026. You got a whole book called Nature Knows No Color Line. You might need to check that book out. All right, it goes in a whole, the whole history of Jake in Europe, mingling with white women. And that's been happening for a long time. And especially today, you see so-called interracial happening constantly. Okay? Constantly, man. And then when you go into the scriptures, Moses, his wife, she wasn't an Israelite. But his sons were still named in the tribe of Levi. It tells us that in the book of Chronicles. So how do you explain that? What about King Rehoboam? His mother was an Ammonite, which is a so-called Japanese woman today. But he was still a Judite, and he was the king over Judah. So how do you explain these things? Right? Like it says in Isaiah 8 and 20, if you speak not according to this word, it's because there's no light in you. This isn't about black people. This is about the Israelites. Now we know that Israel is primarily the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. All right, but this isn't a black thing. This isn't about black people. This is about the Israelites, starting with the elect, coming back to their true heritage, their true nationality, repenting to Yahweh B'Shem El Shai, serving him patiently, sincerely, and waiting, hastening the coming of the Lord. That's what this is all about. It's not about black people. This isn't a Black Panther movement. This isn't it ain't got nothing to do with that, man. All right. As a matter of fact, you want to break it all the way down. If you're not following Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, whether you are Israelite or not, you're likened unto a heathen. The scriptures say, if a man neglect to hear the church, let him be unto thee as a heathen man and a publican. You know, there's times in the scriptures where the Israelites are likened unto heathen. We seen our people turn into Gentiles, right? Turn into unnatural Gentiles. There's even a scripture in 2nd Esdras where they're referred to as heathen. It says, O ye heathen that hear and understand, our people have become like the heathen. John 8:44. You are of your father the devil. The lust of your father ye will do. So this is not about appearance. This is about the spirit. We are supposed to be a spiritual people. Anybody that's still pushing, it's just about black people, you know, or, you know, so-called white people or so-called Asian people, so-called East Indian, whatever. They can't be a part of this. You're wrong. Because that's just how they look, but that's not who they actually are. Okay, and it's really as simple as that. You know, like y'all used to always say, Jake don't know how sex work, man. Jake forgot. A man plants his seed into the woman, and that seed is raised up in her body, and it comes out after 9 months as a male or female. There's only two genders, but that would whatever nationality the father was, that's what the baby is. Point blank period. There's no ifs, ands, or but. Drake's son, Blake Griffin's son, you know, Neymar's son. And the list goes on. All right, so Lord willing, that this lesson was edifying. It's just meant to be quick. Before I close, I want to give all praises to Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai B'Asher Merchak Wadash. The honors go out to the Apostle Ezra Millstone. Shalom.